doing today. This is the Encouragement Conquers All podcast. And one way to be encouraging is to be a father, to be a husband, to be a man, to be a leader. And right now, more than ever, we need fathers. We need husbands. We need men. We need men that are strong, loving, and wise. And I have a young man here who actually, we spend time, here and there just to encourage one another. And young men can encourage older men, and older men can encourage younger men. I think that's something that we need to start doing. If you're a little bit older and you're seasoned, you're a grandparent, or you're ready to be a grandparent, find younger men to be able to be an encouragement to walk with them. And if you're a younger man, find mentors or people that you look up to, or people that can help you and walk with you. And I brought this young man, I look at him as a young man. It's Nick Simmons, who's a gift, who just desires so much to be a great father, to be a great husband, and to be a great man. And he's just gonna ask me some questions today, just to challenge me, help me to be a better man, and hopefully to encourage him, to help him be a better father, husband, and man. And so if you're a man out there, or you're a young lady and you're asking yourself, what is a man? This is for you today. So Nick, thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for coming. I love you, brother. Yeah, thank you so much. And we've hung out a few times, and we do, it's been, for me at least, it's been a big encouragement. Because, as you get older, and as my kids, I have a son headed to college this year, headed to Steubenville, play basketball and, get some good grades. He's an all-A student, he got a great scholarship, and I'm so proud of him. But as you get older, you as a younger man edifies me, because it helps me to think, hey, what am I doing well, or what can I do better? And I think, thanks for your encouragement.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for yours. I guess the first main question that I'm sure all men out there have is, like, you look at today's day and age, you hear nonstop about the crisis in masculinity, and especially in the church. And so I'm just going to start you with a real basic question. What does it mean to be a Catholic man?
Well, number one, it means the cross. It means you got to get uncomfortable. People are so comfortable in their silos. Everybody's in a silo. It's like, who's going to feed me? Who's going to praise me? There's one that deserves to be praised. It's not me or you or anybody out there. It's one, Jesus Christ. And true manhood is to be like the man. Even Buddha says Jesus is the man. You know what I mean? Even Hinduism looks at Jesus as the prophet. So every religion sees Jesus as the man. And Jesus says he is the man. So it's, what did the man do? And what the man did is he put himself in uncomfortable situations for the glory of his Father. And I think, like, right now, because as men, we're rejected, we're looked at as men as like secondary. Even in the home, you hear about this, like, oh, the man's secondary, right? Yeah, secondary in the sense is we're called to serve. We're called to die for our family. We're called to care for our family. It's not like Jesus never said, oh, I'm number one. Praise me, serve me. If you're a man and you do that, then you have a wound. You have a wound. And to be a man means you are in the service of being uncomfortable. If you're a man, you're in the service. How can I be uncomfortable to love like my Father in heaven? And it's the only way that works. Because when we're in the service of ourselves and we want to be comfortable, it ends up, we get into mistakes, we get into pride, we get into ego. And so, like, for me, like, I've always, even my father, who wasn't the most faith-filled guy, really taught me that at a young age. He's like, son, if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't count. And then I looked at Jesus and, like, that's how he lived. I mean, picture being that guy. You are the Son of God, and you're getting rejected. When I get rejected, like, I get upset, right? But, like, he is the Son of God. So I think to be a man, we have to know the man and really live like him and live in an to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's how I'd like, if I just start there.
Yeah. Now, a young man that doesn't have a strong father that was willing to sacrifice for his family and for him.
Yeah.
How is he to, without an example, learn and do this whole process of being uncomfortable, being like Christ? How does he relate? How is he going to heal and be able to relate to God the Father in a way he was never able to relate to his earthly father?
I think the first thing is we have to understand that a father, not the father. I'm a father. You're a father. And I'm excited, and you're a great father. Just encourage. I just watch you. You're compassionate, and that's what the scripture says in Psalms. It says, if you want the father to be compassionate with you, you need to be compassionate to your children. That's what the scripture says. So, and I can see in your sensitivity of your son Anthony. I see that when I observe you, and so I just want to encourage you on that. So the first thing if you don't have a strong father in your life, or number one, you need to go find some good fatherly examples. But most importantly, we have to realize we are a father. Like I tell my kids, I say, look, I'm not your father. Like, who's my father? God the Father. And when I fail, which I will, I want you to say, hey, that hurt me, Dad. That was wrong. Because I'm not representing the Father right. So the first thing is we need to ask ourselves, what are those things that aren't like the Father? We need to get ourselves in order so we can be like the Father and know that even if we didn't have a Father, we need to realize, guess what? We can go to the Father. Where do we go to the Father? It's through our Father. He's our Father. He's our Father. So how does that work? It's like I was struggling with my dad, right? I was really struggling. I was 25 years old. I was living my faith, going to confession, at least, twice a month. I'm going to daily mass. I'm like living my faith like, a strong Catholic would live, right? And I was frustrated when I'd go home to visit my dad. And I remember going to adoration, going to pray one time. And I sat down and I kneel. And all of a sudden I started thinking about my dad. I'm frustrated. I'm a little annoyed. And you have to realize that in the Humility of Heart book by Father Bergamo, it says annoyance equals pride. If you can get annoyed, you're prideful. And so I didn't know that back then, so I was just getting annoyed. And I'm like just annoyed by my dad. And I hear my prayer, he loves me more than you do. And you're saying, my dad doesn't go to church. Hasn't been to confession for probably 50-something years, 40-something years. And I'm like, how can you say that? And I went on this journey. And the journey started as me like, why did God say that? And the journey became, God was right. Because I found out the wounds my dad had. I searched and I combed my dad's life and I listened to him. I listened to him, his upbringing. I listened to the relationships he had with fathers, with other fathers, with this father, with this person. And you know what? God the Father was right. My dad went through suffering that I didn't realize. My dad went through struggles and triumphs, of course, because he's, a successful leader in the community, but he went through a lot of challenges. And I started feeling and being like a father with a father. And realized the Father is going to bring a father and a father together. And I think if you don't have a dad in your life, or a dad that you see as a father that represents, go to the Father and say, Father, how do I love him? Because he's just like me. He's a father. And if we can start there, then what we need to do is realize there's two things getting in our way. It's the wounds that get in the way of myself and my father. And the wounds are, what are those shameful things we've done, right? That are holding us back from loving our Father. Because why wouldn't we love someone? Like, if I told you someone was struggling, but it wasn't your father. If I told you somebody was wounded, but it wasn't your father, would you help them?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, why? So now we have to get this place where the Father can help us love that Father. And what's keeping us away? It's usually shame or it's unforgiveness, because there are a lot of fathers that have done some wretched things. Some horrible, horrible, wretched things, right? But I know those wretched things wouldn't have been done if that father had the Father and knew who the Father truly was. And so we have to go on this quest to go to the Father to help us to love our Father so our Father can help us. That's the way I look at it. That's my way of looking at it. And I'll tell you what, one of the greatest honors of my life is for my father who I did judge, who I did not see like the Father saw him, that my dad looks up to me. It was probably one of the greatest honors of my life. You know, and I've spoken on stages of, tens of thousands of people, and I've written 6 books, and, I've done all these worldly things that people would say, oh, wow. But to be honest, the top 2 or 3 greatest honors of my life, that when I hang out with my dad, he's like, son, you don't realize, I hope I can live to see the beautiful things you're going to do with your life. And I was telling him, you will, because you're going to get God the Father. You're like, well, I'm working, But even that alone, that he's open to like talking like that, where earlier on he wasn't. I think we need to go on a quest. I think every man, if you want to talk about manhood, it's the quest to love our Father and to love our Father.
Yeah. It's so funny because I was having a conversation with one of my close friends, because I too have some father wounds.
Of course,
so did he. But instead of complaining about our fathers, which I think a lot of men tend to do as a way of bonding, I said, what saint does your father remind you of?
I love that.
And that was a painful question for me to ask, because that's not a normally direction I was tempted to go into in talking about these things. But he told me, St. Michael. I'm like, why? And he's like, my father, he might not be the most loving and affectionate, but he's the stoic protector. And that's how I see St. Michael.
Yeah.
He asked me the same question. And I was like, well, no man's perfect. My dad's not perfect, but his good qualities remind me of King David.
Wow.
His zeal, his talent. So what would you say to young men that they want to see their father as a saint, but they have a hard time doing it? What do they have to do? What do they have to ask from God and receive from God to be able to do that? And what benefit is that going to slowly have in their life as it takes effect?
Well, I think it's starting with first writing a letter to them. And starting with only seeing the pearl of goodness in them. Only seeing what the Father sees and intended for his life, not what we see. Like, what did the Father intend for your father? What did the Father intend for your friend's father? Not his mistake or his mess up. Starting there and writing a letter to that father and saying, man, I just want to let you know that I see such goodness here, 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 here. Because I believe every single person, Nick, every single person on the planet has a pearl of goodness in them. My good friend Ken Blanchard taught me that. There's a pearl of goodness in anybody you meet, And it's like, how do we find that? And we see that. And then we get to the point that they trust us enough, that they know that we see goodness in them, that we can do the second letter. So the first letter is, let's write to that father about all the pearl of goodness we see in them. Then we wait and we say, okay, the second letter might be a year from now, might be 6 months, or it could be a month from now, could be 10 years from now. Then we say things that we were always wanting to say. Dad, I just want you to know you hurt me. And if you saw a pearl of goodness in them for a year or 2 years or 5 years, and you say, hey, when you did this, this, and this, and this, it hurt me. What would that do for them and for you? He'd be ready to receive. Because God, I always look at it like this. Like, God doesn't go like, you suck, right? So you're a horrible, Christian. You're a horrible Catholic. So today, I'm not bringing the sun up. It's going to be, for you, everybody else, it's going to be light. But for you, it's just going to be dark today. Does God do that? No. But could he?
Sure.
Of course he could. He's God, of course. So that's the way I look at it. I'm like, if I sucks to suck today, God's not going to go, oh, what we're going to do is no light for you today, buddy. Right? Yeah. What he does is he shows us his goodness. He puts that goodness before us. He sees goodness in us. He entrusts us. I love King David, your example, because look at the great gifts the guy had. Look at the unbelievable gifts. Did he take them away? Did he say, oh, I'm going to take... Now, there are some that he has done that with, for right reason. He can do it. If he wants to take all our gifts away, he can, for right reason, right? Samson, he got his hair cut off, the whole thing, got his gift taken away, and they was in big trouble, right? But for David, that didn't happen. He had to learn pride comes before the fall. And so I think, what does that have to do with it? It has to do with, we have to love like the Father loves. And so that second letter isn't like, yeah, look what you did to me. Right? That doesn't work. It doesn't work. Look what you did to me. It only works when they see you. I see the goodness in you. I see the goodness in you. And some people might say this, what if he dies before you can say that to him? That's why the Father is more important than a father. You have to go to the Father and go to God and say, hey, look, it really hurt me when my dad did this, and I want to forgive him to you, Father. But a father might not be ready for that. You got to know your dad. And maybe he is. Maybe he's ready for that letter tomorrow. And then the third letter is this. So I look at 3 walks of life. 1, it's, let's see Superman. Let's see the goodness, right? 2, let's see Clark Kent, right? All right, let's see the Clark Kent guy. Look at that dweeb, you know what I mean? Like, he's a mess up, and you're going to see that he's a mess up. Right. Then the third letter is, I will meet you in heaven one day. I want to meet you there. Please, Father, know my Father who loves you just the way you are, with the hurt, with the pearl of goodness. Please, Father, know that the Father wants you. He wants your heart. He wants you to change. He wants you to be the man that you can be. Mm-hmm. And that, if you can get to that third letter in your lifetime, you're one of the most blessed men ever. Because most men have never, and that's manhood. Those 3, and guess what? Every kid, my kids, it's the same. Like, no matter how perfect you think you are, that's the story for every single man. Every man. Because guess what? Your kids are going to do the same thing. They're going to go, my dad's the good, right? And then they're going to say, you hurt me? And I hope to see you in heaven. Well, what's the difference? The difference is grace. It's a free gift. It's a free gift. Do people want the grace or don't they? Do they want that free gift, from God? So I don't know. That's the way I look at it. Like if we're going to have a relationship with our own Father on earth, we have to look at it like that.
You know what's funny about the Our Father prayer? Yeah. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive others. And think about the things you'd want to hear from your own children as they're writing you these letters. You better hope that you gave your father the grace he had. Yeah. In the letters you wrote him, if you want your children to be any better. Because, it would seem to be the case that you're a watered down version of your father. If you try to be better, your kids are a watered down version of that. And, there's got to be a lot of healing that goes down intergenerationally, So that being said, though, so how does a man with father wounds and wounds of masculinity, let's say a man who desires to get a group of men together, so iron can sharpen iron, yeah, and they can build each other up and minister to other young lost men, which there is no shortage of today. What do you think, in your opinion, is the best first step for that process?
I think it's intimacy, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of the hardest things to do, and intimacy is letting people into me, and letting people into him, right? I think the first step is being able not to say, hey, are you praying your rosary? Which, I pray my rosary daily, which I'm sure you do, right? And yes, that is of utmost importance, but the rosary without the heart and the truth of Jesus and Mary is just as dangerous as a bad word. You can pray your rosary all you want, but if you're doing that out of a pharisaical, oh, look at me, you could be the most dangerous. You're more dangerous than the bad guy that everybody knows is a bad guy. Because at least you know the guy's a bad guy, but you don't know the guy praying the rosary is a bad guy. You know what I mean? Right? And I know it's funny, but
it's true.
I have kids, and just to share my heart with you, I have young people, 18-year-old, 19-year-old. They're not kids, but to me, I look at them like that. And they come to me and they're serving here for a year or 2 years. And they have families that prayed the rosary every day. But their dad was beating their wife. Yeah. Beating their kids. control and fear. Now that's not everybody. I'm using, 3 or 4 examples out of 100, but 3 or 4 is still 3 or 4%. That's a percentage.
Yeah.
So what's most important? What's most important is intimacy with men. And what does that mean? It means that you can have a group of men that if you published a book, right? And it was a bestseller, that you could walk in that room and go, it was a bestseller, and be overjoyed. And every man in that room would maybe even tear up and hug you because they're so overjoyed that you succeeded. That's intimacy. And intimacy is that you can go in a room and say, oh guys, I effed up. And I've never done this, but men do it. I cheated on my wife. And they're going to cry and go, look man, how are we going to get this in order? How are we going to help you with this? How can we walk through? But I don't want to leave you. I love you no matter what. You're wrong. You already know you are. That's why you came to talk. That's intimacy. That you can cheer the success on. And you can walk with the man when he's a mess. When he's a mess. I have a friend, he's one of my best friends in the world. Every time I'm with him, he talks about how hard his marriage is. He goes, I wish I could hang out with you and not do this. And I said, let me tell you something. When I dated Mary, what did you do for 3 months straight? And he laughs. He goes, oh, I sulked with you and I what? You did that for 3 months. How many days is that? He goes, 90 days. I go, we don't spend that much time every year doing that. I'm honored to walk with you in this. That 90 days you helped me, this is the least I could do for you. And I don't look down on you for your marriage. I want to help you because I know you want to make it better. And I think that's what men need. Because most men in these groups, just to be honest, are hiding. And you know that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know that.
Yeah.
Most of them are hiding. So how do we find a group of men that we cannot hide with?
Yeah, I mean, that actually goes into my next question, because you want a solid group of men that relate to each other well and that desire the right thing together and help each other achieve it. So to get those men together in the first place, what is the best way for men to bond on a supernatural, spiritual level, and on a natural level? What brings men together? Foster loyalty and fraternity under God the Father.
I think at your age, being a young man with a young family, I think getting your families together is where you gotta, I know everybody wants just us men, right? But I think families hanging out together, and then I think what's beautiful, which I see, which I know you're striving for, is you get your families together and then you have a day once a month or a couple of times, once a week, right? Where it's just the men together. And then what you do with those men is I think you need both and what we were talking about. I think you need to know that it's all about God and it's that supernatural experience, right? But then then you need that supernatural experience because we're fathers. If you're a church leader or a priest and you're not married, right? It would be a different question that we'd be answering right now. But it's very important to have human tools, as I'm sure you're realizing, in marriage and being a dad, new dad. You need tools. And I think I would get older men who are married and doing well a part of that group, because those men want to be around somebody that has, achieved success in that. So I think starting with a supernatural tool, like reading Humility of Heart by Father Bergamo together and then talking about that. Or reading, Imitation of Christ and getting a book for it and then reading 2 pages, because that's probably all you can get to before you're getting challenged, right? And then go talk about those 2 pages. Then, how does that connect to the reality of what's going on in life? And then lastly, how can we get other men that are older than you to walk through? So what helped me was, I knew at a young age, I didn't have the skills to be a great father or husband. I'm just being honest. I have a prayer. I pray, almost every day I pray. I say, Lord, I know I will not be the greatest father or husband. That's how I start to pray. You're like, that's a bad prayer. Well, no, just being honest here, man. Maybe you're going to be the greatest ever. All right, God bless you. But I know me, I'm not. But I said, Lord, build a fortress around my family that no matter how far they may run from you, they will get exhausted from the climb and fall back into your loving arms so they can be in heaven with you one day. What does that mean? What that means is, who is the fortress? The fortress is the Father. The fortress is the prayer. But the fortress is this guy you'll never know. His name's Rick Burstone, where I took me and my wife on a marriage retreat, not like with 100 people, with just me. I said to him, I said, look, can I spend a weekend at your house and you just teach me what it is to be a great dad and husband? And and he said, oh, I got this book we can do. You can do whatever you want. Use me as a guinea pig. I don't care. But I see your family, I see your kids, and I look up to you. And he wasn't even Catholic. Because at that time, I couldn't even find a Catholic dad breathing that was any good. You know what I mean? So it was like an evangelical guy. And we're friends to this day. And that was one of the most intimate moments, my wife and I. And we will go back to that. And we learned something called covenant marriage. I'll never forget it. Because covenant marriage is yes. If you say yes, right? And she says yes, then it's God's will. If she says no and you say yes, you can't do what you want to do because it's not God's will. It's only God's will if it's yes, yes, or no, no. And I was like, dang, that's tough. Yeah, he goes, even if you got to wait 5 years, if she says no, 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 you're like, man. Like, so right now, I'm praying about moving or going to another town, right? If it's not yes, yes, we're not moving. Right now it's no, no. Because maybe it's yes, no, or no, yes, nobody knows because that's not his business. But the bottom line is, that's good. But he gave me these tools. It was not me. It was a father that I looked up to and a husband I look up to. And I said, hey, would you do this? And how beautiful. That's what we need this to do. It's very, very, very important to find men. But a lot of young men don't want that. You know why they don't want that? Because they want to be in control. Control is the enemy. There's only one who's in control, and we're all going to find out that very, very soon, or if not, it could be disastrous. Only God, the Father's in control. And when we don't realize that, we have to allow the control to be with him. And so I think we have to get ourselves around as many people that can see our cracks, that can see our gaps. So that's what I said. To be a man, you got to want people around you to see your gaps and cracks. Anybody knows me, I have more infrastructure for people to see my gaps and cracks than anybody, whether it's bishops or priests or friends or leaders or young people. And I think it's very important to have people to see your gaps.
Yeah, that's good. I like that because I've noticed in my own men's group, having a bunch of men around you to call out your blind spots to you and teach you how to relate to them better. It's super helpful because you're used to relating people the way that you want to be related to yourself, and you're imposing your selfishness yourself on other people, which ties into the next question I have.
Yeah.
So I've heard you talk about like the covenant marriage, the yes, yes.
Yeah.
Like the ability for the spouses to sacrifice for each other to have a unified, goal and desire for the marriage and the direction of the marriage. What do you think, in the case of men, hinders them the most from being able to sacrifice? What vices have you noticed in young men that want to get married or are married are causing them to have a hard time with that sacrificial love?
I mean, in the culture right now, my mother taught me this. She said, united we fall. Like, divided we fall, united we stand. Divided we fall, united we stand. Men don't have unity they struggle with unity. You have to ask yourself, who are you really united with? And that's pride. Men get annoyed quicker. I'm default at this. Men get annoyed quicker than any human species on the planet. Think about it. Like how frustrated men get. How annoyed they get when somebody doesn't follow their way. So you're like, how do you get somebody to follow your way, whatever that may be, whether it's prayer, whether it's, fasting, whether it's service, whether it's, your wife and you getting on the same page. How do you get people united when they're not there yet? Do you get them united by going, man, you're not united with me, you better be united with me. Or you're in trouble, mister. Or you tell your wife, look, I'm number one in this relationship. You ever hear that? Anybody that has to say that doesn't know what being number one's about. Did Jesus ever go to the apostle? I'm number one. You know what I mean? Like, did he do that? He didn't have to do that. Because he taught them what being number one. And I think the thing that I can tell you is this. The only thing, I fail at this more than many of them, but the only thing that has kept our family united and my wife and I united, and to not get into that trap, which I see as the greatest trap, is selfishness, is allowing my kids to walk in my life. And it's hard as I get older. It was easier probably even 5-10 years ago to say this, but as I get older, I can be honest with you, Nick, it's hard for me as a grown man, like as old as I am, to say this. How's it going? It's Justin Fatica, and I can tell you I'm so thankful for your encouraging messages and engagement and joining us for our videos that we hope are bringing you encouragement when you need it most. Now, before you go, I want to tell you about some exciting news. Since I was 19 years old, it's my dream to build facilities for kids. Well, that dream is happening. It's a place where young people and their families can relax, socialize, work out, be encouraged, that they can make a difference in somebody's life every day or have their lives be impacted. That's where we need you. We need you to ask yourself if you'd like to help us to break ground. You can be a part of this mission within less than 1 year. But if we don't have help, we can't do this. Now, I know right now there are a lot of people struggling, but we're just looking for pocket change, a rainy day fund, or to connect us with partners who can help make this dream a reality. We want every single kid and every single family to know they're amazing. And it starts with you. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content so we can keep you updated, so you can keep us going. And together, remember, we are making a lasting impact. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your support. And stay encouraged. And never forget, you were made for an amazing day. And it starts with what lives within you. You're amazing. Allowing my kids to walk with me and my wife while they see I'm being mistreated, and them wanting to fight for me, them wanting to say, Dad, that's wrong, and me going, yes, but we need to love, we need to serve, we need to care. So to answer your question, what's holding men back from being united, from not being prideful, for not being self-focused, for not being able to find that manhood and that community, that unity? It's that we're afraid to be rejected. So it goes back to your very same question. Are we willing to be rejected by our, not the Father, but our earthly Father, for the greater good of many generations? Are we willing to dig deep and to say, Father, I see a pearl of goodness in you. Father, this hurt me. Father, I want you in heaven with me. If we can do this, we can do anything. That's what I believe in, man. If we can do though, if we can go back to the basics that we talked about, because that's the hardest thing. Okay, what's harder for a young boy? Being rejected by the cool kid on the playground, or being rejected by Superman, your dad, when you were a kid? What's harder? Anybody in the human right mind would say their father, their earthly father, even if your father was a dope. You got some guy listening to this right now. Their father was a dope, but they're sitting there crying right now because they're like, this guy's right. I want it. Well, then, if we can look our Father in the eyes, look, my father said this to me, it's very interesting. He goes, man, what do all my kids care what I think about? And he looks at me and he goes, you don't ever care what I think. He's laughing about it. He goes, and I had tears in my eyes. And I said, Dad, because I already have a father. He was like, what do you mean? I go, well, look, I appreciate you're my dad, and I'm honored, and I'm thankful for all, and I share the pro goodness. And we've had our mix-ups, and we figured it out. But at the end of the day, if you said, screw you, creepo, right? I don't want to be in your life, it would hurt like hell, and I wouldn't want that. But I still have a father. Mm-hmm. I still have a father. So I think it's hard to make it that simple, but most guys don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And you know what the second thing most guys don't want to do?
Love.
Yeah, and especially this group. This group is a tough group. It's the group that you're sitting here listening to this and you had a dad. And you're looking down upon all these people. Like, look for an answer, like this transgender movement that's just, it's wacky. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm going to Dunkin' Donuts today and the guy's a girl, the girl's a guy. Anybody who has had somewhat of a dad, somewhat of a mom, somewhat of a knows in their brain, like this is just not the way it's supposed to be, right? Of course. But then when you superimpose this structure and this love and this commitment, and you superimpose that on somebody, and not see beyond that, you're not like the Father. You think the Father likes this? You think the Father's like rejoicing over this and going, they're wrong, what are they doing? Right? You think that's what he's doing up there?
Right.
No, he's saying, would someone love them like I love them? Would someone welcome, care, but have a stance and be a great father and great husband? So it's so interesting. So one of the greatest groups that I like to speak to, and they have the hardest time with me, is the people that are like me. I had a good parents. They weren't perfect. I had a solid foundation. People who've had a solid foundation do not want to hang out with me. Because I will not be the person to excuse a lack of love and kindness and generosity and self-control for the broken world that needs God the Father's love. I will not do that. I will challenge that. So I think we need as men to start challenging these men to realize what a gift it is to have God the Father in their life, to have a mom and dad. And if anybody's listening and has had that in their life, you need to wake up. And Luke 12, says this. To whom much is given, much is expected. And I put myself in that group. One of the hardest things to do in my life, I was just crying with my kids last week. I was talking to them. I said, I go to Catherine, I go, it's one of the hardest things to do in my life. And I go, I'm embarrassed saying it. I'm like embarrassed. It's embarrassing to say this, and you're going to be embarrassed for me. You really are. To be put in the category that I love people no one loves.
That's embarrassing? Or?
Yeah. It's embarrassing because when you get in a group of people don't want to be rejected. So they only want to be around people that people praise and love. If that doesn't make sense to you, you've never loved people that no one loves. And I believe that's how Jesus felt. He loved people no one loved, and that's why they didn't love him.
It's funny, no one will stop to think about how they could easily become a societal leper or receive that scarlet letter.
Oh, yeah.
They think, I had a stable upbringing. My dad loved me in sports and thought I was great and slapped my back, called me, he said, good job, kiddo. Good job, sport. And What do you mean, like, gotta care about these people who just didn't get, they should just get it. I got it. My dad's a natural, I'm a natural, they should just get it. You know, and how do you help a man overcome that blindness? That's a daunting task. You know? I mean, I could see you being able to do that. I don't know how I would. You know?
Yeah. I think it's first us having conversations like this.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult. It's difficult, you know. I had I partner with all kinds of groups. And I was partnering one of the larger groups within the service to young people and young adults. And they said, your message is for high school kids. And so I listened, of course. Okay, well, why do you say that? I go, well, yeah, I've spoken at over 500 high schools, so I can get how you would see that. So then I listened, I took some notes. I go, can I ask you a question? He goes, yeah. I go, when you heard me speak, I was talking about a kid who had a dad who killed himself. Right? A dad who killed himself, and how that kid had to deal with being the first person to come home and see that dad in his house after basketball practice. And so I'm just wondering, how is that like a high school message? And then when I asked that question, it got uncomfortable on the phone. So uncomfortable, I haven't heard from the guy since.
Wow.
And it's nothing to judge the person I was talking to, because he's a friend of mine. I love the guy. It's the whole point. Is that a high school man, or is that like actually like a deeper message of, whoa, like how are we going to deal with this? That's like I think that's a higher end question. I think that's more than just it's a socioeconomic question. It's a physiological question. It's a psychological question. It's a spiritual question, right? It's a temperament question. It's a familiar question. Like that's like a high-end question. So that message is, so I'm asking, I need your help. Like, why do you think people respond with it in that way, Nick, when you bring up the scars or the wounds in that way? Why do people react like, oh, that's for high school?
That is a tough question to answer, but I have a general understanding that people have a hard time talking about wounds and suffering. Even if they have them, people are afraid of having visible flaws, especially because of how other people treat them when they see those. And so the vulnerability is just incredibly difficult, especially for men.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and especially because in this society, you know, women will cry and they'll have 1,000 men and women, oh, what's wrong, sweetie? And the man cry, oh, what's your problem? Man up, like, what's your malfunction? And men don't know how to be vulnerable. They don't know how to ask for help. And like they need each other. You know, they need each other to relate to each other as men to help each other, heal each other, and be that iron sharpening iron. You know, and to lead each other to God and to being more manly and to being fathers. And I mean, in my own experience, my own woundedness, like, it's only made me want to minister to people who have wounds more. It's tough because I'm not perfect. Like, I'll still laugh about someone with defects, and then I have to remind myself that's still God's child. I was no better than them. And probably part of the reason why I've laughed about a defect or two is because mine are worse. Mine hurt me more. And there's that prideful, selfish desire to want to feel better than someone. You know, like, oh, so-and-so has ADHD, you know, and like, I just have OCD. You know, it's like,
we all got some letters, that's for sure.
Yeah, we all got some letters. And so, yeah, if we start being honest with ourselves, though, and start being vulnerable with ourselves and other people, like, we're going to do way more good. And then, I think a lot of the issue, too, with men is they confuse vulnerability with an over-eagerness to be submissive to another man.
Correct. I
And so
agree with that.
it makes them naturally uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think that you can't be confused about what I'm talking about. You can be virtuous and be strong in character. It's why, like, I hate bringing his name because he's like a worldly name, because then everybody brings his name. But, like, it's why I do like Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because he's similar to myself, where he's crying about these intense hurts and pains that are going out, but yet he's very strong and virtuous in his convictions. And so I think we think you can't be somebody that cries and be strong. And so that's why I think from my perspective, if I were to very simply diagnose America and the world, right, which is not simple, but if I were to simplify it, we've lost the tears and the virtue. Or we got rid of the virtue and we got the tears. You know what I'm talking about for men?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is we need both. And that's why I don't know, I just bring this up because I think it speaks this. That's why anybody's got to watch this docuseries that we have that's coming out. It's on the basketball team that I coached. And it's interesting because it's all about the virtue, like of standing up for what's right and being a man and working hard and giving your all and following through, being a man of your word. But then it's got the other aspect that's about, it's okay. You never met your mom? Because I had a kid who was on my team. The first time, it was like the third or fourth time I met him, he's like, Coach, I want to show you my mom. And he shows me a picture. I go, she's beautiful. She looks like you. And he goes, I go, man, I can't wait till she comes to a game and I can't wait to meet her. And he goes, yeah, I can't wait to meet her too, Coach. Because he never met her. I go, where'd you get the picture? He goes, oh, I looked her up on Facebook. And so, but now this kid, I just talked to him yesterday, and he's getting all A's and B's in school, and he's falling. He's like, man, I'm gonna live for what's right. I'm gonna do what God asked me to do. Coach, I've been away from the girls. I'm gonna, stay pure and what have you. So it's beautiful. But at the end of the day, going back to what you're saying, I think we can't execute one for the other. That's what I'm saying. And I think that's what we do. We want to be virtuous, but we want to not be vulnerable. So you and I coming up, I think it's the 2 V's that a man needs.
Yeah.
They need virtue and vulnerability.
Yeah. We also need better media that portrays men in a better light because...
That's why I got you on here, right?
Well, thank you. Well, no, because that's the other thing too. You turn on the TV, the kids are clever, the wife is clever, the dad's a bumbling idiot, and if the dad's crying, he looks goofy while he does it. And it's like seeing The Rock in a dress.
Yeah. I never looked at Rock in a dress. That's all that doesn't happen.
And it just makes you laugh. And so these guys, it's like no wonder they curl up in their shells. And they're so atomized. And they retreat into video games and pornography. I was addicted to porn for 11 years. And by the grace of God, I somehow got out of it. I have no idea how I got out of it to this day. But
you got out of it through vulnerability and virtue.
There's no shortage of bear traps there waiting to just snatch the men away, because if you take away the men, you take away the head of the family, and then you don't have these strong, tight-knit families with strong father figures. I'm not talking about perfect father figures. I'm talking about strong. They're still willing to do the right thing in spite of their shortcomings.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the Hallow Lab, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, you got Mark Wahlberg on there, who's 55 and Jack still, whatever, but yet he's praying at every chance he can. Even though he's running around, promoting tequila all day, what I mean? But my point is that, but that's something we need, examples like that, who, of course, he's not perfect, but he's an example. And somebody like yourself and many other men out there who I agree with you. I think, we look at somebody who's using girls and jacked as a man, but then we don't see somebody who's strong and courageous, but loving, wise, and pure-hearted. Can't we have all of that? Now, look, it's a broken thing. I think the media culture affects the way we look at people too, though. Because you can always just say, hey, I'm just these 5 things, but you're really 45 to 45,000 of those things. You can't do it through media. So I think, if I were to say it's what you're striving to do, why you've done better in pornography, I think it's very simple. You've surrounded yourself with men who want to be vulnerable, who want to care about you. And I know you even have reached out to me and said, hey, could we hang out, And you've reached out to different priests and different leaders. Hey, I want to, even people older. I think that's what we need. Like I was saying, we need to start as men, young men, reaching out to older people that are succeeding in their family life. Not perfect, they'll screw up and let you down. Then you'll do the same thing and have to forgive them and go to Superman. Hey, hey, I hope we make it to heaven together. And then you realize we're all human, but we need older men. We need men around our same age. And then the other thing we need, which I think would continue to help you, is finding younger men, like I know you've tried to do with our young men when they were here, finding younger men that are looking up to you to be that example. I always look at the Paul, the Barnabas and Timothy approach. You need somebody that's challenging you, holding you accountable, that's older than you. You need somebody that's your colleague or your brother on the same page, like the Barnabas, to encourage you and walk with you, good or bad, love you no matter what. And then you need the person that looks up to you, you know, that, which is like the Timothy. So I believe it's, you know, the PBT component, you know what I mean? The Paul, Barnabas, Timothy component. And that always helps in any society. And to tell you why you're not looking at pornography, I think you have that. I think if every man had those three people in their life, they wouldn't be looking at pornography because they'd be having somebody holding them accountable. They'd have somebody to encourage them, rain or shine. And they'd have somebody that's looking up to them, go, oh man, I gotta stay focused.
Have you found that in your life, like the older men have showed you what you want to be, and then the younger men show you what you didn't realize about yourself at that age?
Yeah, that too, yeah.
It gives you better insight in how to minister to them.
Yeah, for sure.
And how to relate to the older men too.
Yeah.
Like you can learn something from these younger guys.
Oh, so much.
Infinite value.
I've learned a lot from you every time you're with me. Like, you know, I've been doing this so long, like I have passion, you know that, but like it gives me, when I hang out with you, I have more passion. I have more zeal, more encouragement, more hope. You give me hope. And I think anybody out there, hang out with somebody that's younger. Even if you're 18 or 20, hang out with that 16. I see it with my son. When he hangs out with the younger guys, they all look up to him, you know, and I see it. He has a different energy. We can't close up on ourselves. And we're not going to find that through somebody that's on the screen. We're going to find that through somebody that's looking at you.
Yeah, you got these men that are seeking validation and reassurance through women's attention.
Yeah.
And that's selfish gratification. You want those women to validate you. But then if you're a man and you're trying to like help out other men be better men, or even humble yourself and receive mentorship from an older man, that's selfless. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it, but it's like that you're doing something for the better, and you're actually fulfilling yourself in a way you didn't realize you would fulfill yourself. And sometimes, like, the way the men pursue these hookups and this just like, I love this female attention, it's the coin in my realm, you know, like, you're filling a void.
For sure.
And I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah.
As a young man, you know, ugly duckling, got older. If I just had, you know, a man I could look up to be like, you're awesome, I love you, I believe in you, like, I wouldn't have needed any of that.
For sure, though, you know, the same challenge, like, the reason guys, and I see this, like, with my daughter, there are guys that want her attention. Why? My daughter's unbelievable. She's the cutest girl around, all right? Stay away from her, all right? It's not time yet, man, all right? You ever come to talk to me, all right? That's what I just gave her a ring that, you know, basically, no one is going to date you until, you can't flip over that ring, one of those Irish clotter rings. And you can flip the ring over and your dates are when they sit down with me and we talk and we have a conversation. But that being said, all these young guys, they want her attention. Why? And you know what it is? They either emotionally haven't connected with their father, or they're going through a rejection from their father. We would think like, oh, they, you know, want to be pumped because they didn't get loved by a woman. It's rarely that way. And so and what you're saying is there's such a power and such a strength in being a man. It's so important to be a man. When you're a man and you look a kid in the eyes, you know how many times I'll go to games and these are strangers and I'll look, I go, I want you to know I'm proud of you. And I don't know the kid, but I really am sincerely proud of the kid because, you know, he's living, he's alive, he's not discouraged, he's playing hard. These kids will go like, who's that guy? It's because we don't realize as men, when we look younger men in the eyes and we're sincere and we're vulnerable and we mean what we say, and young women. It's a powerful force. So my big thing is don't ever doubt. Doubt is the enemy, right? Belief is your friend. You know, doubt is the enemy. It is the enemy. Doubt. Doubts and lies are the enemy. But doubt is the start of the lies. Once we doubt that our manhood is insignificant, then we stop making belief our friend. And when we stop making belief our friend, Nick, it's game over. You got no more quarters left, all right? You're going Pac-Man, you're done. Turn it off, all right? NBA Jam, turn it off. NFL, it's over, man. No more back. You didn't have the quarter games. I had the quarter games. I don't know if you had those, but let me tell you something. It's over. It's game over when you doubt. So I thank you for, hanging out. Honestly, this has been great. We got to do this again.
Yes. One last question before we tie it out.
Hey, I like when I get more. We can keep going, man. I'll go all day, man.
So I'm assuming you're consecrated to the Blessed Mother.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you see Marian devotion making men more manly, virtuous Catholic men? Like, how has Mary helped you in your life? How have you seen it help the younger men?
All right. So I look at Mary. If you go to my book, You're Amazing. You can get it at Audible. All right. .com. Like, you can just listen to it. But I have in my book, I call her the secret weapon. And why I say she's the secret weapon is, like when your mom, like, you come home and the dinner just happens to be there, but you didn't see her make it. You didn't even notice that she cleaned the linens because you're a kid and you don't even notice it. Did you ever, like, go to someone's house and the house is spick and span and you're like, wow. It was great. They really got, but you weren't there to see it. You didn't know there was 8 hours of preparation. You didn't know she was yelling at the kids for an hour of it, right? I look at Our Lady like that. That when we devote ourselves to her and say, I want you a part of my life, she's getting everything ready so the Father can use you to love the brokenhearted people that the Son wants you to meet. That's how I look at Our Lady, and that's how I look at the Marian devotion. That don't look at how you feel when you do it. Don't think that there's nothing really happening, because there's actually a lot going on that you don't even realize. And there's a secret power in that. And I know that because I waited. My devotion story is this. So I went to speak at the Apostolate Family Consecration. And the first year I go, the founder, who his whole goal, his whole mission is to train people on how to commit to the Marian devotion, Louis de Montfort, through Pope John Paul II, basically. That's his way of doing it, the Marian consecration. So the first year I'm speaking, I'm the speaker at the conference. He gives me 2 books for the Marian consecration, and I say, oh, thanks a lot. I didn't even think anything of it, didn't pick the book. So then I go the second year. He's there again. He gives me 2 more of the Marian consecration books. And I went and I don't know where I put them. Nothing, I swear. The third year, my wife was with me. The second year, third. My wife and Jojo was just born at the time. Like, he was little, and he was probably only 2. And my daughter was just born, and we're there. And Mary and I are there. He goes, what books did that guy give you? Again, a woman getting things in order for you, right? Oh, I gave me this Marian copy. I go, it's funny, Mary, because this is the third year the guy gave. She goes, what? The third year he gave? True story, right? This is 2010. And all of a sudden we go, all right, let's do it. And and I was really struggling because my speaking was going really well at that time. But if you know me well enough, I was struggling because I need to always have young adults around for whatever reason, because I really believe I'm not called to just be a speaker up on a stage. I'm called to really train younger people on how to do it, because ever since I was young, I never wanted to, like, the speaking is kind of like my gift, but like that's not what's on my heart. What's on my heart is to train younger men and women to be able to bring the gospel. And at that time, all the young people were gone from me. It was just me. Well, the first missionary that year, the year I did the Marian consecration in 2010, it was random. He's at that conference like, hey, I want to help you out. And I go, oh, okay. And I found he ended up living in my house, the first missionary. And when he comes, he goes, oh, my mom and dad want to give you this gift because you let me say, and no lie, you'll see, if you've come to my house, you've seen it. I have this big, like, Our Lady of Fatima statue at my house.
That's right.
And, yeah, you've seen it. And that was the statue the first missionary gave me. And then we were doing our consecration at that. You see how this lady, she's a secret weapon. She had it all dressed up. She had it all ready. I just had to surrender to her devotion. And I always tell people, at that time, I would pray during the consecration at that statue in the morning before I left for work or for whatever. And I remember praying, and I was praying to Our Lady, and I've never prayed to Our Lady direct hit. It's just never been my style. I would pray a rosary, but it'd be for Jesus, right? And I prayed and I said this. This has been difficult to bring the gospel to the world. Please, Mary, if you let me in the back door, I know that every mother has a back door. If you let me in the back door, guess what? I promise I'll honor Jesus, right? And I believe she let me in the back door. And we did a consecration. We were praying a daily rosary consistently, you know. If you go to our house, you know, you really can't get out unless you pray a rosary with us, right? You can't get out. So, and the Marian devotion has been the secret weapon that no man or woman or Jordan Peterson or anybody in the world, but every person in the world should do it. And I really like to be Our Lady. I don't think Our Lady needs me to run around. I think what's important about the Marian devotion is we don't got to be running around telling everybody we're doing, because that's not how Our Lady does it. We need to just do it.
Yeah.
And so if you're out there and you're like, well, yeah, everybody's bothering me. Well, they're bothering you because you're probably supposed to do it, but like I was. But that's my Marian devotion story. I don't know if that helps you, but that
real men have Mary as a mother. You're never going to be more manly than Jesus. Mary as his mother. Say what you want about St. Pope John Paul II. When he was 3 years old, his mother died. He walked up to a Mary image and he said, "You're my mother now." It was the image of Our Lady Czestochowa.
That's beautiful.
And last thing, there was a priest who was, I don't remember if he was from the Marian Friars or if he was the Marian order, but he was talking about how any priest related to a scandal that's been involved with a scandal, you look at a priest and he's done something kind of wacky, you'll see a trend. He never loved Our Lady. He never said the rosary. He didn't have Mary as a mother. You need Mary as a mother to be a manly man, a manly Catholic man.
You're right. I agree with that 100%.
Amen.
Pray them beads. You got to pray them beads.
Or else you're not on the team.
Yeah, if you don't pray them beads, you're not on the team. You know? Well, thanks for closing out with Our Lady, because there's no better way to be a man. And that's the thing, you have women in your life that really can walk with you. And your wife, I just want you to know, she's a special young lady. And, you know, your family reminds me of my family when they were young. And it's great. It's always great to see you when we go to Mass together, when I see you at church. And so thanks for your brotherhood, man.
Oh, I got you.
Awesome stuff. Well, you know, we're here to encourage. That's the bottom line. And if you've got another way to do it, you know, we do it, you know, through Our Lady. We do it through encouragement. We do it through being men who are vulnerable and virtuous. But hopefully you have a way to encourage somebody. Get out there and encourage. And if you're not encouraging, guess what? Come here every time. If you're not encouraged, come here every time. We'll encourage you in big ways. God bless you.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Encouragement Conquers All podcast with Justin Fatica. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this episode with someone who needs a little encouragement. For more uplifting content, follow us on our social media pages. See you in the next episode.